Hello all, welcome to this simple tutorial in Unreal Engine 4. We're going to be making a main menu today. So the process is fairly simple. So first we're going to want a widget blueprint. This is basically the UMG. So we're just going to make one by right clicking on wherever in the content browser. Going to go down to user interface and select widget blueprint. Next we're going to open that up, just going to make a new window. You can dock it to the main one if you want. And it's going to bring up this, so it can zoom out the scroll wheel and you can move around the right mouse button. Right, so at the moment we've got the information about the UMG down here, so at the moment it's scaled to 720p, but it is 16:9 aspect ratio. We're going to want to make that 1080p. So I'm on a 1080p monitor. You can set this to whatever resolution you like. So down here, you've got a little arrow. You can pick that up and drag that, and it's going to give you all sorts of different resolutions. You can go all the way up to 4K. And you can do some monitors may have vertical rotations, so you can also do that. So 1080p by 1920. But we're just going to use 1920 by 1080 as that's the most common, and it scales the best on most monitors. Right, so here we have the hierarchy. So the hierarchy is basically the list of every single element which we've got on the user interface. So at the moment we've got the canvas panel. Now the canvas panel is basically a container for all of the other items within the menu. So for instance, if we want to add a background onto this, we're going to have to drag an image or a border onto the canvas panel. That makes it a child of the parent. So we're going to add an image, which is up here in the column tab. There are many other things which you can pick, but for what we're doing now, we just only need an image. Pick that from here. Now at the moment, we put it into the canvas panel, and it's currently anchored to the top left-hand corner. We want it to be anchored to the whole of the screen, so there's no gaps around any of the edges. So what we're going to do is we're going to go onto the anchor panel. Then we're going to pick the one at the bottom right, and that's going to make it so that it sets it so it's anchored to each individual corner. Now at the moment it's showing offsets. We don't want any offsets, so we're just going to zero out all of those. If I were to say anchor to the middle, it would ask for sizes. So now let's add a bit of colour to our image. If you want, you can also rename this to background, just so it's a bit easier when you're referencing different elements of the mid-user interface. So we're going to go and select background, and now down here under appearance tab we've got the brush where you can add an image. You can also add a tint and set the resolution, and there's also colour and opacity. We're not going to bother with adding an image, we're just going to add a colour. So we're going to go onto the RGB colour picker. So we're presented with a colour wheel, and you can set this to whatever colour you want. I'm going to go with the light blue, and once you've made your option, then you can just click OK, and it's going to save that. You'll also get RGBA values down here. If you want transparency, you can also do that by editing the value here. So that's half transparent. This would be good for pause menus, so where you can see a bit of the gameplay, but not everything is hidden. So at the moment I've got this on opaque because this is going to be a main menu. So now we're going to add our buttons. Now before we add any buttons, we need to add a panel. So I'm just going to drag in a vertical box. Now there are many different types of box which you can pick. It depends on what type of menu you're making. You can add a horizontal box, say if you wanted a sort of different type of main menu, but the most conventional one to go with is just a vertical box. Now a bit like the background, it's anchored to the top left, but although on this one we want to set it so it's in the middle. So I'm going to go into the anchor tab and I'm going to do the middle one. Now on here, unlike the sizing of the background image, it's going to give us a size X and Y. Now we're going to want to zero out the position X and the position Y, and you may notice that it's not in the middle still. Now we can fix that by setting the alignment to 0.5 on both the X and the Y axis. So now that's completely centered in the middle. Then we're going to add some sizing. So the size X, we're going to want to make that about 400, so we've got enough space for the text in our buttons. And I'm also going to set that to 400, in fact I might actually go 600. So I've got a nice box here, can fit all the buttons. Actually I might just do 400, doesn't matter. So now we've got a 400 by 400 box. We can call this box our menu. Our menu box. So we know what it is in relation to all of the other elements in our page. I mean, in our user interface. So now we're going to add some buttons. So up here on common, you've got all of these. We're going to want to pick button. I'm going to make about 4 of these, but before we do that, it's typically easier to set the styling one button and then and then duplicate the rest after that. So to make that size correctly, so the buttons take up all of the box, we're going to want to set the sizing to fill, so it takes up everything, and it's going to automatically scale this. If I were to do this, it would automatically divide into 2 buttons, so that's 50. It's going to be 3, 4. So we're just going to set 4. So they're all individually sized, and they should all be sized the same. Right, now we're going to add some text to each button, but before that we're just going to label them. So I'm going to name this one button start. I'm going to name this button option. I'm going to name this button credits, and then this button is going to be quit. Now, if they don't have any text on them, we need to do that next. So we're going to add in some text, and then it's automatically, if you drag it over to the button, it's going to automatically make the text a child of the parent button, as you can see here. And we can do the same for each individual one after that. You can also set the position. At the moment, I've got it where I want it. It's in the middle on both the horizontal and the vertical alignment, which should be fine. I might change the font of the text, and you can do that. You can select all of the text. You can do it in the hierarchy or by selecting them by yourself. And I'm just going to change the font. So I'm going to set the font to black, and you can do that in the RGB color wheel or on the gradient picker. So now the font is black, we can easily read that. So now we're gonna add the text to the buttons. So this button start. So now that's done, we can add a bit of padding to our buttons now. So I'm going to collapse all of these, and I'm going to add some padding to them. So you might have to go into each individual one and set the padding. So I'm going to show you how that's done. So you select the first button, and then you break down big padding menu. Now we're going to want to add some bottom padding. So let's see what works. So let's try padding a 1. 10 actually. Yeah, 10. 10, that's just enough. And we'll do the same for every single one after this. Right, so here we go. So we've got some padding. In fact, we might not need to do the padding for that one. So we've got some nice gaps between each one, so it looks a bit nicer. You can hide the outlines by pressing this button here, or you can press G and hide it. So that's already looking fairly good, but it's missing a title. You can also add some information down here, so we're going to do that now. So we're going to collapse all of the menu and the background, and we're going to drag in some text. and that's instantly going to make it apparent of the canvas panel and nothing else. Again, it's aligned to the top right. We're going to want to make that just the top middle. I'm going to zero everything because we're going to do size to content, and this is going to make sure that it automatically sets the box to the desired size of the text, the font. So we're going to size the content, and that's going to build a block around this. And whenever we change the font, it's automatically going to update. So let's say we want a big menu text here to say the name of the game. So let's do 60. And as you can see, it automatically updates the size, and we don't need to change the size of the block, so it's very, very useful. Again, it's not exactly the middle, so on the X value we're going to set 0.5. We don't need to worry about the Y, because we're just going to go down. So on the position Y, I'm going to set position to be around 100. There we go. And we can rename this box to the name of the game, so I'm just going to call it main menu. There we go. I'll capitalise the N. There we go. And that already looks great. So we're going to add some basic functionality now. So what we're going to do is we're going to compile it and save it. We're also going to rename it to something more memorable when we get into the blueprints. So we're just going to call this main menu. Now, so we've got our main level here, and I'm just going to add, say, a cube or something. And when we get into the game, we can move around. Now we need to make a new level. So we're going to go onto the context menu on the content browser, and we're going to go onto a new level, and we can just call this main menu level. So inside of our main menu level, there's going to be nothing. All we need it for is just the blueprints. We're not going to see anything inside of this level. So first we're going to go up to the blueprints, and we're going to go into open level blueprint. Now on here we want the main menu to automatically be called as soon as the game starts. So we're going to drag off from event begin play. I'm going to type in create widget. So what this is going to do is this is going to construct the widget blueprint, and we can get the class, and as you can see the main menu which we just made is going to appear on this context menu here. Now we need to add our own player, so we're going to go right click anywhere you want and type in get player controller, and then you're going to bind that to that so it knows where to cast it to. Then we need to add this widget we just made to the viewport, so we're going to drag off from return value and do add to viewport. That's automatically going to link it. Now we want to show the mouse cursor, so we're going to turn off context sensitivity, and we're going to do show mouse cursor, and we're going to set that. We want it to be yes, so we can see the mouse. And this is a predefined variable inside of Unreal Engine 4, so we don't need to worry about declaring this variable again because it's automatically been made by the engine. We need to make a new player controller and just connect that up to the target. Now there's one last thing which we need to do. We need to set the input mode. So we're going to drag off of this set cursor, and we're going to do input mode. So now we've got three options. So we've got game and UI, game only and UI only. We only want UI. So we're going to add that. So we're going to link that to the end, and we're going to make another player controller. And we're going to set that as a player controller. Now when it asks for a widget in focus, we're going to want to set this one here. So when we constructed the main menu widget, we want to set the return value to that as well. And we can neaten this up a bit. We can add a reroute node to make it look a bit nicer. There we go. So now that's done, essentially. We can compile that and save it. Now, if we were to jump into the game, it wouldn't work right off the bat. That's because we need to go into edits and go into project settings. Once we're in the project settings, you want to go onto maps and modes and set the default map as main menu level. We don't need to save anything here, it saves it as an INI file automatically. So now we're on the main menu level. Now when you first start the game, if you were to package it, it will automatically go onto this level. So now here we go, it's drawn over. So I'm set this, I'm gonna play it. So here we go, so everything scales correctly, as it should do. And if I were to play in a new window, and we were to drag this around, it's gonna scale perfectly fine, because we've anchored it. You can do this with any other element you want. As long as you anchor it, it's gonna scale to the size of the screen perfectly fine. So now the buttons don't work, so we're gonna make those work. And we're gonna focus on the start and the quit button, because after you get the hang of this, you can make your own new menus. Of course, I will go through a tutorial later on to set the options, but setting the credits, it's as easy as making a new menu and following along what I'm going to do next with the start and the quit. Basically, when you press a button, it calls for an event, and we've got the 4 buttons here. So when we click start, we want to open up the menu, the level which we just made. So we're going to give this a name. So we're going to name this game level. In fact, I'm going to name it world, because that's more suitable. So we want to open up our world. So now, once we've got start, you want to go down, and there's an events tab right here at the bottom. On clicked, open up that. Now, it's going to take us to this whole new event graph inside of our main menu. We don't need any of this, so I can just get rid of it. So now on button start, what we want the button to do is we want it to get rid of the main menu and open up a level. So the first thing which we're going to do is we're going to drag off from the button start, and we're going to do remove from parent. Now from here, it's going to ask for a target. Now currently we don't have a suitable target to use, so we need to go back into the designer, and I'm going to want to go onto the main menu, the canvas panel, and set this as a variable. So canvas panel 0 is now a variable. Now if we're going back into the graph, it's here. We can drag that out and set it as the target. So now once we click button start, it's basically going to hide the whole menu, or at least it should do. Oh no, sorry, my apologies. So we just want to just open a new level, because the main menu is binded to the main menu level. If we open up a new level, that level's not going to be there. So we're just going to open up the level, and as we know, the level is called world. I'm going to click save. Now when we do that, it should open up the new level, like so. Now of course we've got no input, because we set the input mode to user interface only. So we're going to stop that. I'm going to go back to here. I'm going to drag out from here, set input mode. And it's going to be game only. Again, it's going to ask us for a player controller, and we can get that easily. We're going to get player controller. we also have our cursor visible still, so we want to remove that. So again, uncheck context sensitive, and do show mouse cursor, and set. We want to make sure that that is not set, so I'm going to bind this to the player controller as well. Click compile and save, and now play. Now when we go on to start, it should open up and we've got full controls. It looks perfectly fine. Next, we're going to go through the quit button. So with the quit button, it's actually fairly easy. We're basically running a command to exit the game. So we go onto what we did down here. So go onto clicked on the events tab, and I'm going to do run command. Sorry, execute command. Sorry. So I'm going to do execute console command, and this is the most easiest way of doing it. There are more official ways of doing it, but at the moment we're making a simple menu and it doesn't really matter. And this one works just as fine. So we're going to bind this to the player controller. Now we'll need to give it a command. So command, it's a very easy one to remember, it's just quit. There we go. Click save and compile. In this tutorials, when we make a more in-depth main menu, we'll set the dialogue so that it asks you, are you sure you want to quit? And then a yes or no will appear. So now that this should work right off the bat. So exits it when we click quit. So we've got the full functionality of the main menu here. So at the start, which opens up a level, which is what we want. We've also got the quit, which exits the game. So that's the main menu. So that's very easy to make. Takes about half an hour to make, and you can add your own touch of personality. You can add an image. In later tutorials, we'll also get into making a dynamic main menu where you can see a world around you, but that's for a later tutorial. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, like the video, whatever you'd normally do. Make sure to subscribe. Hope you did enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.